Well, hello. Today I'd like to talk to you about Chinua Achebe's Things Fall Apart. See if I can get that in focus for you. Oops, and lit. So I saw this cover when I was in Rapid City over the summer, and it just really caught my eye. It's a book. Honestly, I'd heard of Chinua Achebe, didn't know much about him, and I had never read this book and never heard of it. So I know I'm supposed to be researching the Great Sioux War and all that, but this was interesting, and I try to have other interests going on. So I just recently finished reading it, and it was interesting. It was definitely worth reading. So sometimes I review books that are what I call junk food. I just did the 3 Area 51 novels all in one video because they were junk food, and I'll probably never read them again. Now, this one is not junk food. This one is definitely one I have thought about a lot since I read it. So the author, again, is Chinua Achebe from Nigeria. He is actually an African author, and it was published in 1959. He was born in Nigeria, and the book is the first in a trilogy that follows the same Nigerian community over 3 generations, from the first colonial contact to urban migration, and finally the breakdown of the traditional cultures. Sorry, I thought I was going to sneeze there. Occasionally on this channel, I have referenced Orson Scott Card's Mice Quotient. I know Orson Scott Card can be a bit problematic, but the Mice Quotient I thought was an interesting way of looking at books, because what it is, it's milieu, idea, character, and event. What's the main focus of a story? The milieu, which is what I believe this is, that's about places. And I think we're really exploring a place, a time and a place, and a culture. This takes place right as the colonials first begin arriving in Africa. And we get to see suddenly the main character, who was a kind of a big man in his own culture, suddenly feel that he's being pushed aside and irrelevant, and worse, which we'll get into. So, definitely, I would say mellow. One of the things, when you look on Orson Scott, the websites that I linked about Orson Scott Card's interpretation, often they are put in an unfamiliar place and they explore it, kind of like Alice in Wonderland. And that's really what happens to the main character here, is suddenly a very familiar village and home becomes a very different place for him, with all new rules that he doesn't understand. So the protagonist, whose name is Okonkwo, he's a sympathetic character, but also a very difficult man to like. He was the son of what he considered a very lazy, poor man, a man who was in debt to everybody and had no hope of repaying it, couldn't work hard enough to do so. And so Okonkwo, his whole life, has pushed himself to be the exact opposite of his father. As a result, he also pushes his wives, because he has 3 of them, and his children to be much more than they are, or they maybe want to be. And he can be very cruel to do so. Beatings of wives and kids, insults, threats, whatever it takes. Like I said, he does manage to be sympathetic. He is, as I said, physically and emotionally abusive. And it brings up a good point. This book does not paint the pre-colonial era as some kind of a lost golden age. It acknowledges the warts of the culture that existed before the colonists arrived. The difference, it's about how were the people who lived there affected by the arrival of the colonists. And so in a way, it's kind of matches up with my different experience, but at the same time the same experience as what I'm talking about with my Great Sioux War project that I've been working on. Because it was a horrific time. There was injustice, there was superstition, there was brutality, but it was theirs. As far as the superstition goes, I mean, there's plenty of superstition right here in the United States, so why is this any different? The book begins by sharing just various events in the local culture, just things that happen throughout the year, the celebrations, the wrestling, the dances, the beating his wife and all that stuff that went on. And it shares it, warts and all. There are some real warts. One wart that really springs to mind is a young boy who is sent to live with Okonkwo's family. The young boy is going to be the sacrifice because of a crime that his father committed. The young boy has nothing to do with this. His father killed somebody. And so the boy is going to be killed for that on a certain ritual day. So he lives in Okonkwo's house. Okonkwo comes to like him. He thinks the boy is ambitious and sees a lot of himself in the boy. He wishes his own son was more like this boy. But he knows that the boy's going to have to be killed. So when the day comes that the boy has to be killed, his friend tells him, "No, Okonkwo, you should not be part of this. This would be wrong. It'll bring bad luck upon you." But Okonkwo is worried about looking weak. That's a big motivating factor in his life, is looking weak. So he goes along with the men who are taking the boy out into the forest to be killed. And in the end, Okonkwo strikes the killing blow. And you just let that sink in for a minute. That this is a kid. That he is treated as a son that he killed. So no, this author does not shy away from some of the problems with the culture that was there. And that's definitely a big one. He is truly broken up by it. He takes a long time coming back to himself, and it just happens to take place during a time when he's not as busy, and so he has a lot of time to dwell on it. Various other events happen. He ends up probably dealing with emotion from this, ends up beating his wife during a time that's supposed to be peaceful in the village, so he gets punished for that. But later on, during a celebration, his gun goes off totally by accident and ends up killing somebody in the village. So he is exiled from the village for 7 years. Now, it's different from the father of the boy because it was an unintentional killing. So, 7 years out of the village, and then he served his time and can come back. And so you remember I said he's gone, and then, or the Milieu was about visiting a strange land. I promise nobody is knocking at my door. That's a flap for the dryer vent, and I don't have a dryer, and the stuff I had stuffed in there to keep it from flapping when the wind blows is... yeah. So I gotta stuff some more stuff in there. But anyway, where was I? Oh, yeah, so I have not been home in several years. Thank you, COVID and various other things. I'm hoping to next summer. But one thing that I always notice when I come home, even when I was just away for college, home changes. If you've ever heard the saying, you can't go home again, it's true. When you're there, the changes are gradual and they just, oh, that was different. I just drove down a random street in my town today that I don't normally drive on, but I forgot, I was grocery shopping and forgot my wallet, and noticed that the house I used to rent is going to be torn down. It's just, that's kind of a shock, but no biggie. But somebody who comes back to this town after being away for a year or multiple years, or in Okonkwo's case, 7 years, a lot can change. People die, people move away, new people come in. The things and places that you knew are gone. So, yeah, you can't go home again. And that is exactly what Okonkwo finds, because during the time that he's gone, missionaries move into his old village. They build a chapel. They start recruiting. They sneak their religion into the culture by first welcoming, the least welcome of this culture, the most powerless, the lowest status. And they're happy because they finally have a place that wants them. And then they start building up, worming their way into the culture and getting more and more people, including Okonkwo's own son. And the old ways just basically crumble with a whimper. Okonkwo tried to stand against it, but he is just swept away by events. And they really take him up. He gets to see the leaders of the village humiliated by the white man that has come in and usurped control. He has a solution to the colonizers. He wants to fight them. But he acts alone with horrific brutality. And it's ultimately ineffectual. His own end is equally brutal. And the book ends by talking about the commissioner who's in the area, who's writing a book. And he reflects in the last paragraph that, yeah, this might be worth a paragraph in my book that I'm writing, The Pacification of the Primitive Tribes of the Lower Niger. So this book is definitely not junk food. When I say junk food, it fills you up, or in the case of a book, it entertains you, but nothing sticks with you except maybe a flabbier belly or something. This is more like a real serious meal. You really think about it afterwards. And I've caught myself thinking about it a lot. And, as I have time to research the Great Sioux War, definitely some parallels there. And because it was kind of a parallel situation. One of the things that I've thought a lot about is the missionaries. We always think of, in our culture, we think of missionaries as pretty selfless. But let's not forget what missionaries are doing. They're going in and saying, hey, your local things you're doing, not good enough. You got to do the white man's way. And they use religion. And we have always seen with colonizers, religion is a tool used to control the people whose land is being taken, whose culture is being usurped. Here in the United States, not here in Canada, but up in Canada, we've seen the Indian boarding schools. Most of them are religious in nature. And one of the things they tried to do was knock that religion and culture right out of the kids that were in their charge. Religion is used to destroy societies from the inside out. It is a powerful tool. And it works because, religion in general is often used to control people. As you can see in this book, it's not just one religion that's used that way. They're all used that way. They are a tool used by the powerful to control the less powerful. It's just one more tool in the toolbox. So I thought that was good that was acknowledged. I think, although it took me a while to figure out what the book was doing, was just random events. I'm like, when does the colonization start? I finally figured out that oh yeah, it's a Malot book. He's trying to show the culture as it was, and then why it was such a shock to Okonkwo when he came back and found his world totally turned upside down. All of his accomplishments, all the respect he had for the things he had done, meant nothing to these colonizers. And suddenly he's not a big man anymore. And, to somebody like Okonkwo, that's hard. And I think that also means that you could consider this a character book as well. I don't have that written in my notes, but as I talk about Okonkwo and how he felt, I realized that, yes, this was a milieu, but it was also a character study about a man seeing his whole culture just ripped out from under him like you pull a rug out from under somebody. So, Anyway, definitely a book worth reading, and I will be reading the next two in the series sometime this winter, so expect to hear about them later. Maybe over the holiday break I'll read them. I don't know. But anyway, I want to thank you for watching. We'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.